We're now on Daf Tzadi Dalid Amid Beis. We started a complicated sugya, but we made some progress. Hopefully, we'll be a little bit more grounded. So we're up to Omole Rav Ashi Lirav Kahana. And that's towards the bottom of Tzadi Dalid Amid Beis. We'll count up. Or you know what? Instead of counting, it's about 15 lines up from the bottom. It's parallel to Tosas Dibra Maskal Rabbi Akiva. I don't think you need a scanner for that. Hopefully. So you see Tosas Dibra Maskal Rabbi Akiva, and you'll see the line that starts with the word Binisuin, approximately, I'm not sure if it's 15 lines up from the bottom of the Amud, or maybe 12, 13, 14, one of those. Amalei Rav Ashi L'Rav Kahana. The Gemara, if you recall, had just successfully reconciled Rabbi Akiva with our Mishnah. And the Gemara had assumed that there's a difference between Erisin and Nesuin. In the case of Erisin, there's a very strong possibility that the man married this woman with a t'nai, and there was a bittul at t'nai. The marriage is therefore null and void. And in a case where he married her with only erisin, we're going to require a get, even though the marriage is certainly not valid, because the onlooker may think that the marriage, right, and then she got married a second time. So as far as the second marriage is concerned, we're going to assume that maybe the first marriage, which would have undermined the second marriage, was not valid because of a possible t'nai. But in the case of Nesuin, then we don't assume that there was a t'nai in Nesuin. So the Gemara says, I Rabbi Akiva, lisni nami chamosa. What would be the din if a person marries the mother of his wife, what we call a mother-in-law, chamosa? In other words, the man heard that his wife died. And now his wife shows up alive and well. He went ahead and married her mother. And for sure, that marriage is not valid. Because you're not allowed to marry a woman and her mother. Hashamina le Rabbi Akiva, di Omar, chamoso liachar misa lav bisreifa. If a man marries the mother of his wife after she dies, then there's no onish sreifa in that case. We're going to lower the severity of the iser because his wife is gone already. Now, when it says chamoso liachar misa lav bisreifa, does that mean that after his wife dies, he's allowed to marry his mother-in-law? We'll come back to that question in a minute. Our Mishnah, if it can be reconciled with Rabbi Akiva, which was the premise that that was the principle that we concluded with yesterday, then the Mishnah should have clarified the din of a man who mistakenly married his mother-in-law thinking that his wife was dead, according to Rabbi Akiva Shita, if we assume he's allowed to marry his mother-in-law after the death of his wife. He finds out that his wife is indeed alive. Then if his marriage to the mother-in-law was only erisin, we should require a get, according to Rabbi Akiva, simply because the onlooker, the spectator, is going to think that if there's no get, it's an ashes ish yotzeis below get. And we're talking about Rabbi Akiva's shita about aim chamos liachar bisa. in which case that although on a Doraisa level, if let's say the marriage was, let me say it that way, if indeed, in fact, his wife had died, the marriage would be valid. But now we found out that his wife is alive and well, and the marriage is meaningless. There's no tfisas kedushin to chamoso. But nevertheless, we cannot allow chamosa to just get married without a get, according to Rabbi Akiva, because the onlooker might think that the marriage to the chamoso is a valid marriage. This Sanya, and we learned in the Brisa. This Brisa records a machlok between Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva. The pasuk says, "Ba'ish tisrofo oso v'eshein." The Torah is talking about marrying a mother-in-law, and the pasuk says, according to Rabbi Yishmael, we'll take Rabbi Yishmael first. Oso v'esachas mehen, which means that chamoso is included under the drasha of ve'eshen, right? It says oso ve'eshen. Oso refers to the husband of a woman who went ahead and also married her mother. And then it says ve'eshen, ve'esachas mehen, which means chamosa. Do you follow? You know, it's a man is not allowed to marry both the daughter and the mother. And for which relationship is he chayav misa b'sreifa? The Torah says ba'ish tisrof. So if we would have just said the word oso, then it might mean that right? In the word oso, if the word oso refers to him who went ahead and married his mother-in-law, then the eshen and they, we're now in Rabbi Shmuel, would mean the es achas mehem, and only one of them. So he's chayav sreifa for oso and achas mehem. So that if he has a relationship with chamoso, right, and that was the last relationship that he had in the sequence between the daughter and the mother, then he's chayav sreifa for having a relationship with the mother-in-law. Rabbi Akiva Omer oso v'shtehen, that you cannot say oso v'eshen means achas mehen, because eshen is in the plural, and therefore it refers to shtayim. So now, what we haven't addressed here is whether or not his relationship with the daughter, when he married the mother, would likewise, as far as the daughter is concerned, generate a chiyuv sreifa. So according to Rabbi Yishmael, the es achas mehen is referring to the last one, and that's chamosa. And that would imply that as far as the daughter is concerned, she would not incur a chiyuv sreifa. And Rabbi Akiva says that's impossible because the Torah says v'eshen, eshtein. Harei she'ef shel farish kavanas hakosuv shegam ishto chayeves b'sreifa b'nosaf le'ima. Shall we assume that the daughter also gets sreifa? Sharei lo asasa iser klal. I mean, she got married first. What iser could she be guilty of? The mother could be guilty of chamosa. Is nechlaku abai v'rava b'kavanas divrei Rabbi Shmuel, divrei Rabbi Akiva. So again, we're giving a little bit of an introduction now to what we're about to learn. L'das Abaye, what did Rabbi Akiva have in mind? Kavanoso, sorry. Kavanoso, lefare sheshtei noshim nisrafos imo. That also v'esed means that we're going to put 3 people to death. He, the mother, and the daughter. V'zeu, when does that apply? Shenasa al ishto es ima, v'es aim ima. Now I begin to understand. So he married a woman, and then he married both her mother and her grandmother. Shtein chayovos sreifa, even shenisu lo be'isa. So the mother and the grandmother will be put to death together with him. That's Abai. So that's the way Abai understood oso v'shteim. We could put 3 of them to death, and we talk about the mother and the grandmother. Rava disagrees. Kavanas apostle Rabbi Yishmael shenosa rak es chamosa. He didn't marry the grandmother. This possible. He only married the mother. El sheba kosev lehasnos es misas nosei chamoso bechaye shtei noshim. Sheina nosei chayav sreifa el shenoses chamoso b'shasha isha kayeves. So the Eshen, both of them in the plural, referring to the mother and the daughter, according to Rava, that is setting up a condition that both of them are alive. He's chayav misa because he had a relationship with the mother while the daughter was still alive. The mother is also included in the Chiyuv Misa. The daughter is not because she got married legally. But the Eshen, which means the 2 of them, mother and daughter, according to Rava, refers to the fact that the mother and daughter are both alive and well. Okay, so now we go back to the kasha of Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi was saying that according to Rabbi Akiva, the Mishnah should have included the din of nosei es chamoso kisheshama shemesa ishto. He heard from testimony that his wife died, and he went ahead and he married her mother. So Gemara says the following. Bishleim el Abaye di Omar Mashmos Dorshim Ikabe Nayu. Abaye claims that there's no machlokas ledina, it's only machlokas in how to interpret psukim. The Rabbi Shmuel Sovar Chadoksiv, Rabbi Akiva Sovar Tartiksiv. According to Rabbi Shmuel's interpretation, the word eshed means one of them. And therefore, according to Rabbi Shmuel, there's no need to introduce the grandmother into this picture, because it's going to be reading also vs achas mihen. Achas mihen means we're only dealing with the mother and the daughter, and the last of them is the mother, so she'll be put to death. But there's no grandmother in the picture, because esed means one of them, one of the two, meaning either the mother or the daughter. He understood the word esed means that there are two women who are chayiv misa, chayiv sreif, and therefore Rabbi Akiva will be forced to interpret the pasuk as referring to a mother and a grandmother. Is shapir. Shapir means there's no room for your question, Rav Ashi. Why didn't the Mishnah mention the din of noseas chamoso in the case where he heard that his wife had died? Because we're assuming, according to Abaye, that Kuliyamalo Pligi, both Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel, meaning even Rabbi Akiva, would agree that even after his wife dies, he's not allowed to marry his mother-in-law. So even if he relied on the testimony that turned out to be false, that his wife was gone, he still is not allowed to marry her daughter, her mother. So let's just read one more line and then we'll hopefully be able to piece the pieces together. Elo lirava di omar. He says the machlokus is chamos liachar misa ikabenayu. So what does Rabbi Shmuel hold? That if a man marries his mother-in-law after the death of his wife, then chayovim shneim sreifa kiberchaye ishto ula Rabbi Akiva enom chayovim sreifa ela b'chay ishto zyesh lahakshos listening nami amoso. So it's Rava who holds that according to Rabbi Akiva, there's no chiyuv sreifa unless his wife is alive. And therefore, if he heard that his wife died, and then he married her mother, and lo and behold, his wife is alive, then the Mishnah should have mentioned that case as well. But according to Abaye, we have a very clear-cut answer to the question why the Mishnah omits the case of Noseas Chamoso, who heard that his wife died, because Rabbi Akiva never argued against never rejected Rabbi Shmuel. And Rabbi Shmuel's assumption was that even after the death of his wife, he's not allowed to marry the mother. So this whole business of requiring a get because somebody might think that the marriage was valid, no one would think that the marriage was valid, because even if he heard the rumor or heard the testimony that his wife died, he's still not allowed to marry the mother. That's going to Rabbi Shmuel. Now, Abai is saying, b'mashmos, meaning that even Rabbi Akiva accepted all the halachic principles of Rabbi Shmuel. There was never a machlokus between them. So therefore, the Isser of Chamoso applies equally to the case where his wife is alive as it does to the case where his wife is gone. But according to Rava understood that the machlokus between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva is a very real, tangible machlokus, halacha l'maisa. And what's the status of Chamoso liachar misas ishto? And it was Rabbi Akiva who introduced a ptur in the case of liachar misas ishto. So when he hears that his wife died out in Medina Sayyam, right? He's allowed to marry Chamosa. Why was that case omitted from our Mishnah? So Rav Kahana responds to this question of Rav Ashi, and he says, the miyata kra. What does that mean? Demiyata kra. Just give me 1 minute, and I'm right with you. Demiyata kra. Af shemiyad osa kosav shi ptura misreifa liachar misas pita, but misura mimiyata kra. Oh, so this is the point that we had touched on earlier, that even if in the parsha of Sreifa of Chamoso, the case, according to Rabbi Akiva, of liachar misas ishto is excluded, that's only as far as misas Sreifa is concerned. In other words, the Isser of Chamoso goes through 2 stages. The more severe stage is when his wife is alive, and then there's a Chiv Sreifa. Less severe, we dip down 1 level lower in the case where he marries Chamoso liachar misas ishto. But in both cases, the Torah prohibits that relationship. Is therefore misura lo miyata kra, mi miyata kra. She was never excluded as far as the Isser is concerned. Even after the death of his wife, the Torah prohibits him from marrying his former mother-in-law. And that's true even according to Rabbi Akiva.
Would another nafkamina be the subject of the offspring of with his mother-in-law?
Could be. That if it's a mother-in-law after his wife dies, according to Rava's interpretation of Rabbi Akiva, the child might not be a mamzer. See, because I don't know what the nature of this onesh would be in that case. We only know that according to the Gemara, Misreifa miyata kra. Oh, so this is the subject actually of Tosfos on the bottom of the page, that 1-liner. Meisura mi miyata kra. He says, Klomar mi lav v'kares lo miyata el misreifa. So now we're saying that even after the death of his wife, if he marries her mother and they have a child, the child is a mamzer because the nature of that Isser, although it's not a Chiv Sreifa, but it's a Chiv Kares. The Torah excluded, according to Rava's interpretation of Yekiva, Mesa Ishto from Sreifa, but not from the Lav and not from Kares. So we're talking about a Lav and a Chiv Kares, and therefore the child would be a mamzer. So just to summarize, the Gemara is saying that Rabbi Yishmael's question is very relevant according to Rava. According to Abaye, which is Mashmos Darshanik Reinayu, whether or not we say Chadaksiv or Tartiksiv, then it comes out that there was never a dissension of Rabbi Akiva against Rabbi Yishmael as far as the Isser of Liachar Misas Ishto. Nothing changes as far as Chamoso is concerned when his wife dies. Nothing changes. The same Isser, the same Chiyuv Sreifa applies to Chamoso, even Liachar Misas Ishto, and says Abai Rabbi Akiva never rejected that. So therefore, the question of Rav Ashi now, well, what about a scenario in which they testified, or they testified that his wife died, and then he went ahead and he married his mother, the mother of his wife. That doesn't make any sense, because what gave him license to marry the mother of his wife? Because even Rabbi Akiva agrees that liachar misas ishto, there's still a chiyuv sreifa in the case of chamosa. However, before Rav Kahana got on the scene, the Gemara was assuming that according to Rava's interpretation, Rabbi Akiva argues against Rabbi Shmuel and maintains that there is no erva relationship after misas ishto with chamosa. So chamosa means his ex-mother-in-law. What does that mean, his ex-mother-in-law? She is only considered his mother-in-law as long as he's married to the daughter, or at least as long as the daughter's alive. With her, with her death, Chamoso loses her status as Chamosa. And now we have the kasha of Rav Ashi. Why didn't the Mishnah mention a case where the Eidecha testified that his wife died, and then he went ahead and he married her mother? Rav Kahana answers, no, you're misunderstanding. According to Rava, what was changed through the death of his wife was only the Chiyuv Misa. But as far as the Lav and the Karis is concerned, they are unaffected by the death of his wife. And although Rabbi Akiva disagrees with Rabbi Shmuel as far as Sreifa is concerned, and Rabbi Akiva insists that there's a drasha and a mute in the parsha of Sreifa to exclude a case of Mesa Ishto, that's only as far as Sreifa is concerned. But as far as the Isser Karis is concerned, even in a case of Mesa Ishto, nothing has changed. The Isser Erva of Chamoso is still in place with a Chiyuv Kares. And hence, we're back to Rav Ashi's kash. Why didn't the Mishnah of Rabbi Akiva mention this case where the man got married to the mother of his ex-wife, thinking that his wife never died, relying on the testimony of one aide? And when his wife turns up alive and well, says Rav Ashi, Rabbi Akiva would require that the Chamoso receive again. Why? Because the marriage to his wife, the daughter, was only Erusin without Nisuin. And the spectator, therefore, is going to say, well, there was a T'nai, and the marriage was never validated, and his marriage to the mother was a valid marriage because there's no erva. He was not married to the daughter, and hence she can't go without a get. Why wasn't that mentioned in the whole listing? And the answer is because we don't assume that since he heard that his wife died, therefore he was allowed to marry her mother, his mother-in-law. That's not so, because even Rabbi Akiva, according to Rava, would agree that chamoso is prohibited with an isakares even after the death of his wife. Okay, then, so let's make a note of where we got up to here. We're on Daf Tzadi Dalid Amud Beis, about to turn to Daf Tzadi Hey Amud Aleph, and we're up to Vite Aser, which is 3 lines before the end of the page. Okay, then. So let me wish you a great day. Thank you so much.